Hey everyone, welcome back. In the last couple lessons, we added in the payment context code so we can add in the payment shipping and payment method information. And now we only have two delegate methods left. One is called when we begin a Stripe charge, did create payment result, and the other is called when it is complete, did finish with status. So to begin the process of making a Stripe payment, we are going to come up here to our place order clicked, and we have the payment context dot request payment. And it says here in the summary, this requests payment from the user. This may need to present some supplemental UI to the user, in which case it will be presented on the payment context host view controller. For instance, if they've selected Apple Pay as their payment method, calling this method will show the payment sheet. If the user has a card on file, this will use that without presenting any additional UI. After this is called, the payment context did create payment, result completion is called, and then after that is done, then we have the did finish with status, okay? So I'm also going to start our activity indicator right here. So I'm gonna say activity indicator dot start animating. And also when we call this, our payment context is going to automatically do some checks to make sure that there is a selected payment method as well as a shipping address. If there is not, it will start the process automatically to do so. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let's go ahead and run this. All right, so let's go ahead and add a product, add to cart, go to the cart, and let's go ahead and say place order. And we haven't selected a shipping method. So if I say place order, then you'll see that it's not going to place the order because we haven't selected a shipping method. And so it automatically pops this up for us so we can enter that shipping information. If we didn't have a default payment method here for this user and we tried to place an order, it would first try to have us put in a payment method, okay? So that's a nice little bit of functionality that we get for free, but now we need to write the code that will actually take the user's Stripe customer ID, the amount we want to charge, send that information to a cloud function, which will then communicate with the Stripe servers requesting a charge be made to the provided customer, okay? So we are going to be doing that here in this method did create payment result, okay? So again, just to be clear, we click on the place order clicked button. This method is called request payment, which triggers this delegate method. And this is where we are going to call our cloud function that actually sends the information to Stripe to make the charge and then returns a result. And we're not going to write that cloud function in this lesson. We're going to do that in the next one. We're just going to do the client side code in this lesson. So we're kind of doing step 1 and then step 3. So this is step 1 right here where we make the request to our cloud function. And this is going to be step 3 where we handle the response. Step 2, which is the cloud function sending the information to Stripe. That's going to be in the next lesson, all right? Okay, so here in did create payment result, we're going to call our yet to be written cloud function and send it some information that it needs to create our Stripe charge. But what is that information? Let's check it out. And that is at stripe.com/docs/API. And if you scroll down here on the left side under core resources, we have the charges section. And we want to take a look at create a charge. All right, and so it says here that to charge a credit card or other payment source, you create a charge object. If your API key is in test mode, the supplied payment source won't actually be charged, although everything else will occur as if in live mode. Stripe assumes that the charge would have completed successfully. And then over here on the right, we have the Node.js code that shows how to create a charge. We say stripe.charges.create, and then we provide the required information. We need to tell them how much to charge, what the currency is, and who to charge. Okay, so this example is using what is called a source. We're going to be using the customer's ID. All right, so let's take a look here on the left here. We have the arguments that we can provide to our Stripe charge. We have a couple of required ones, the amount and the currency type. And then we are going to be using the customer ID of an existing customer that will be charged in this request. And when you provide the source as the customer, then it's going to use the default payment method for that customer. And then you have some other things that you can provide, such as a description. In this example, we're saying charge for Jenny dot, and then the email for that person. You can add metadata. You can provide a receipt email, and yeah. So take a look through here and check out the different things that you can provide in the Stripe charge. We're going to keep it pretty simple. We're just going to provide the amount, the currency, and the customer to charge. We are also going to use something called idempotency, okay? And this is an important principle. And if we come up here to idempotent request, you can read a little bit about it. It says that the API supports idempotency for safely retrying requests without accidentally performing the same operation twice. This is useful when an API call is disrupted in transit and you do not receive a response. For example, if a request to create a charge does not respond due to a network connection error, you can retry the request with the same idempotency key to guarantee that no more than one charge is created. Okay, so that's really important. You don't want to accidentally charge a customer multiple times due to network errors. And the way that we do that is right here as part of the arguments to our stripe.charges.create, we add in the idempotency key right here. And this idempotency key can be any unique value. So right here it says an idempotency key is a unique value generated by the client, so that's our app, which the server uses to recognize subsequent retries of the same request. How you create unique keys is up to you, but we suggest using v4 UUIDs or another random string with enough entropy to avoid collisions. All right, so that is idempotency. And I'm also going to link this good blog post from Stripe about a little bit more about idempotency, why it's needed, how it's used. And so I'd recommend reading through this as well. All right, so now we know the information that we need to send up to our cloud function that we're going to write in the next lesson. We need the amount and the customer ID and an idempotency key. Okay, so let's go back to Xcode. And here in our did create payment result, we are going to, let's first create our idempotency key, all right? So remember, this is just a randomly generated string, and we're gonna do that using the Swift library UUID, okay? So I'm gonna say let idempotency, kind of a strange word, equal UUID. Okay, so this is a universally unique value that can be used to identify types, interfaces, and other items. And I'm going to say, we're going to create that, and then I'm going to say .uuid string. This returns a string created from the UUID, such as this string right here. Now, this string, it does come with dashes, okay, and the Stripe library doesn't like it with dashes, so we are going to replace any dashes with just with nothing. So I'm going to say dot replacing occurrences of, and we're going to say we're going to replace any dashes with nothing. Okay, so now we have our idempotency. So now let's go ahead and create our functions call. Okay, so we're going to say functions. Let's see, do we have, looks like we don't have functions imported here. So I'm going to say import Firebase functions. Okay, so now we can use our callable functions that we've been using. And I'm going to say functions.functions.https callable name. This creates a reference to the callable HTTPS trigger with the given name, okay? And again, we haven't written this cloud function yet, but we're going to call it make charge, okay? And then we're going to say dot call, and we have our completion. We want to send data with this call, so I'm going to say we want this second one with the data and completion. And so for the data, we're going to write that in just 1 second. And then for our completion, we're say enter, and then we're going to say result and error. All right, so now we need to provide our data. So let's go ahead and create that. This is going to be a dictionary. So I'm going to say let data equal. And we are going to provide, we need key value pairs for the amount to be charged, the customer ID, and the item potency, okay? So let's go ahead and we need to specify the type here. So I'm gonna say this is of type string and any. All right, so we need to send the total, and we get that from our Stripe cart dot total. We need to send the customer ID. So I'm going to say customer ID is equal to the user service dot user dot Stripe ID. And then we also need to send the item potency key. So I'm going to say item potency, and that is the item potency variable that we just created right here. And then we're going to pass that right here in the call. So we'll say data right there. And that should be good. All right, so we're sending to our cloud function that we're going to create in the next lesson the total amount, the customer ID, and the item potency. That's all the information that we need to create the Stripe charge. All right, so once the cloud function goes and does its thing talking with Stripe, we're going to get back a response. We're going to get back a result and an optional error. So first we're going to check to see if it was successful. We'll say if let error is equal to error, and we'll go ahead and debug print that error. So we'll say error dot localized description. Then we'll go ahead and present an alert to our user saying that it was unsuccessful. We'll say self dot simple alert. For the title, we'll say error, and for the message, let's go ahead and say, we'll just keep it simple for this example. We'll say unable to make charge, okay? And then this delegate method has a completion that it wants us to call. We have a Stripe error block here. And so if we were unsuccessful, we're going to say completion error, and we'll pass the error, and then we're going to return. So that's if we were unsuccessful. If we were successful, then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clear out all of the Stripe cart information and reload the table view because we've already made the payments successfully for whatever we had in the cart. So we're going to say Stripe cart dot clear cart. And then we're going to reload the table view. So self.tableview.reload data. And we are going to say self.setup payment info. And that will update the payment info, and everything should be zeros at that point. And then we're going to finish up this delegate method by saying completion nil, which means that we were successful. There was no error. Okay, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit here. Save that. And that's looking good. All right, so just to recap what we did here, we created our item potency variable. We created our data object, which contains the necessary information for our cloud function to communicate with Stripe and create a charge. And that information is the total amount, the customer ID to charge, and the item potency. And then we actually call our cloud function here, send that data, and then wait for a response. If we had an error, then we are going to handle that. If we were successful, then we're going to clear the cart, reload the table view, and set up the payment info. Okay? All right, so whether we were successful or not, when we call this completion, then this right here is called the did finish with status, okay? And this status here, it has two properties, .error and .success. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a switch statement on that property and present an alert to the user either saying something went wrong or that it was a success, then pop the view controller, okay? So let's do that. All right, so we're going to create a couple of variables here. Let title of type string, and then let message of type string. These are going to be the title and message of the alert controller that we are going to present based on whether we had an error or whether it was successful. All right, so we're going to do a switch statement. I'm going to say switch, and we are going to be switching on the status, which is a Stripe payment status. All right, so we're going to say case.error. Okay, so the payment failed due to an unforeseen error. Okay, and if that happens, then we are going to, first we're going to cancel our activity indicator. So I'm going to say activity indicator dot stop animating. Then we are going to set title equal to error, and we're going to set message equal to error dot localized description, and we'll do a nil coalescing to unwrap that. And so we've set our title and error. For the error case, if we are successful, case.success, then we're still going to cancel our activity indicator, say .stop animating, and then for our title, if we're successful, we're going to set title to success, and our message will be equal to thank you for your purchase. Okay, and then in the case that the user cancels, case.user cancellation, what we're going to do is we are just going to return out of this function. All right, so we are now we're setting title and message for the error and success cases. Now we can create our alert controller. So I'm going to say let alert controller equal UI alert controller. We're going to initialize it with the title, which is title, and the message, which is message, and our preferred style is .alert. And then we need to add an action. So I'm going to say let action equal UI alert action, and we are going to initialize it with a title, which will just say okay. Our style is .default, and we have a handler here, so I'm going to press return, and we'll just say action. And then in the code here, what we want to do is pop this view controller. So I'm going to say self.navigationController.pop view controller animated is true. All right, so when we present the alert, we are going to have an alert that says whether it was successful or there was an error. And when we click on OK, we're going to dismiss the checkout view controller. So now we need to add the alert controller's action. So I'm going to say alert controller dot add action, and the action to add is simply called action. And then we need to present the alert controller. So say self.present, and this one right here. View controller to present is the alert controller, animated is true, and completion is nil. And there we have it. We have just finished our client-side code for handling the Stripe payment. And again, this is kind of step one here. When we did create the payment result, this is going to send our information to our cloud function, which is step 2. And then when that gets its response from Stripe, it sends it back. And we end up here in the did finish with delegate method, where we do a check on the status to see whether we were successful or not, and present an alert controller accordingly. And then we dismiss the checkout view controller from there. Let's continue on to the next lesson and write our cloud function that actually makes the Stripe charge. I will see you there.